Words Away Presentation, Chapter 5, Word Study for the Letter Name, Alphabetic Stage by Carlos Ivan Alfaro. The alphabetic stage key characteristics around ages of 5 to 7 years old. Normally, students in this stage are within their first grade. It can extend at times to second grade. It is a very important period of many beginnings. And it needs very careful scaffolding throughout. Students should be provided with contextual support that relates to the student's language experiences and interests. The earliest activities is good to use pictures, and then later students work with words in families and non-words. Basically, that's some of the ideas that we want to get to throughout this stage. Literacy development needs careful scaffolding. Emergent literacy continues to develop during this stage, and the concept of word in text or CAUT is pretty much developed throughout this stage as well. In regards to literacy development, many components of the literacy in this emergent stage continues to develop during the letter name alphabetic stage. Vocabulary, oral language, and concepts growth through all the stage described in this book. However, phonological awareness and the concept of word in text will reach maturity by the end of this stage. Reading with less predictable materials, they must rely on vocabularies and their abilities to figure out unfamiliar words using a variety of strategies, including the coding, analogy, and prediction. In regards to concept of a word in text, rudimentary and firm. For rudimentary, they're able to track words of a memorized text left to right using their knowledge of consonants and cues to word boundaries. However, they may still get off track at times, especially with two syllables. And then they're considered to have a CAUT firm or firm CAUT with with a firm concept of word and can finger point read accurately, and if they get off track they can quickly correct themselves without voice pointing or starting over. They can find the words themselves in a text, and they can quickly use their knowledge of letters and sound and to remember words after several readings and several exposures to familiar texts. Also, sight words are developed throughout this stage. Early on this stage, students may be considered partial alphabetic readers because what they remember about words may be incomplete still. They're still developing some sounds and words. They'll give us an example in the book, for example, monkeys, and they might spell it like MK, MY instead, right? Or Mike or many, they might confuse those. Then they'll be considered full alphabetic readers once they know the vowels and consonant sounds, and they can fully connect spelling to pronunciation and meaning in memory. Their reading fluency is not too quick. They're still considered slow readers. They are like what is called word by word readers at times, but this becomes with time more fluent as they practice more. At the beginning, towards during this stage they can do an average of 30 words per minute depending on the familiarity, difficulty, and the genre of the text. Most beginning readers point to words when they read, and they read aloud to themselves if they're reading independently. If you visit a first grade classroom, for example, during independent reading, you're likely to like hear a steady hum when they're reading, or you want to notice finger pointing through text, and at times this fluency and reading aloud to oneself, which are natural reading behaviors to be expected among beginning readers. The idea is that with time and practice, and these habits become more fluent. Also, during the alphabetic stage, key characteristics, um, well, as they becoming readers, they're also becoming writers, and they're learning how to spell. Vocabulary continues to grow. They move from sight words to some other words. Um, Vowels, digraphs, and blends are recognized, and they begin to sort them and to point them out. Basically, now they are understanding words a little bit better, and the parts of each word and how to sound them. If not, at least they're in that stage of learning those processes. Vocabulary, basically the quality and the quantity of this growth pretty much depends on the richness and the frequency of verbal interactions with peers and adults. Um, it is very important to talk about meanings of words and doing lots of readings throughout this stage, and to be mindful of systematic teaching, especially with students uh, in this stage, because everybody may come from different backgrounds. Not everybody may have had the same exposure, so there might be a few vocabulary gaps, and you want to gather as many of them as possible by scaffolding them into the same kind of well, as possible as you can to scaffold them so they can all be in the same stage if possible. Also, there is a lot of orthographic development, letter name and sounds. Um, they match the phonemes. They can segment to the letter names of the alphabet in ways that may seem curious and random to be uninformed adults. But the important point is that they are on their way to acquiring the alphabetic principle. So they're very pretty much just beginning all this process of decoding and writing and spelling and making sense of all these sounds into actual text. Moving towards moving toward a firm concept of word in text. um, to develop a firm concept of words, children need to do lots of finger point reading in familiar, simple text. So even if they like it a lot, then it's good to read it over and over and over until they become familiar with those words, because any text has that is rich with words is an exposure to these concepts where they get to practice, especially if it's a subject or theme that they like a lot. So many things that we can do is support reading. Ways that we can support their reading is with, for example, using predictable text, patterns, simple language, images, so that we can guide them through the understanding of this text. Also, sight word learning. Expose them as much as you can to sight words, like if you can see the book below, I can see a train. So there's a lot of sight words right there in that simple sentence. And in regards to sight word learning, encourage activities, and the more that they can dominate the sight words, the easier the and that the more fluent they'll become when reading new texts. Into supporting writing and supporting vocabulary development, it's good to highlight, read, and discuss several words from read alouds that you do. Engage in interactive read alouds that encourage students to talk and ask questions. So you keep it interesting, keep conversations about what you're reading, and that way they're not just listening to you, but just keep it interactive. Encourage students to talk and ask questions. Use the turn to talk during any discussion, or ask children to retell the story or to act them out. The point is to keep them talking, so that way that vocabulary is flowing and it's a fluid process. Some ways we can support this process too, as they're learning to write. We can use sentence stamps like these ones, uh, where we can use support writing. We can also enrich simple text with images. We can also do concept sorts, like in this other example below. I have two concepts, hot and cold, and then I have a few images that can be cut out, and they have to like sort them out uh, to learn these concepts. At the same time, they're also learning new words and new vocabulary. All right, and then for activity one, sorting blends, you're gonna find this on page 168. The purpose of this activity is sorting blends help students to develop vocabulary, and at the same time, it can help them develop their phonemic awareness, beginning sounds, and consonant blends. As you can see in the image, I'm gonna demonstrate eventually with the bleu, clu, and flu. These are beginning consonant blends, and the materials that I'm going to need and you'll be needing for an activity like this one. Basically, the cutouts of the words or the blends that you're gonna teach, and also the images for do-it-yourself activity, so that students can then sort them out. If you go actually on page 168, you're gonna notice that you can do this type of activity for many other areas, focusing on contrast in the middle letter name, or to focus contrast for later letter name, or also just to develop vocabulary per se. And for example, for English language learners, you can develop activities like this one with more focus on the J and the H, and try to clarify what is the difference on the sounds between those. Additionally, for English language learners, I like to always mention that you can always teach them vocabulary through pictures and word picture matching. So it's always very good to do this type of activities with your students. For less proficient students, it's good to focus more on vowel sounds and consonant sounds before doing small blends or small words. Again, for English language learners, include opportunities to explore vowel and consonant confusions between languages using explicit examples. And then modification for more proficient students, you can include more vocabulary, advanced words with more than 3 letters, or more complex digraphs and more complex blends, maybe more consonants together or double vowels together, and so on, as the student is continuing to progress and moving forward. Before I do the demonstration, I'm going to also talk about activity number 2. It's just because of the recording purposes. I'm using my iPad, so I apologize. So really quick, I'm also going to talk about activity 2, and then later I'm going to insert a video demonstrating activity 1 and then demonstrating activity 2. So for my activity 2, on page 189, I found this activity is titled Push It, Say It. And the purpose of this activity is to help students to practice blending sounds as they move tile cards together. You can see here on the image what type of tile cards we're talking about if you're not familiar. You can create these yourself with a marker on even post-its. I've seen teachers in my school using post-its and creating this. These activities helps to promote sounding out and decoding new words. Materials, again, a set of tile cards containing letters of the alphabet, consonant digraphs from similar words, families per lesson. So you try to stick to like same word families. And it's good to do like just a number of these depending on the grade level, but you don't want to do too many of these and you don't want these lessons to be too long. Keep them short, but keep them very, very precise. And then some modifications that you can do for less proficient students, you might want to have images representing the words that they are learning. So if you want them to match two diagraphs together forming a word and you can find an image of the word, that's going to be very, very helpful. Also use more time when introducing new sounds, stretch them out, maybe exaggerate them a little bit more, and you'll see all that in the demonstration. And then some modifications for more proficient students. Repeat the activity but with a tile for each letter. Maybe make it a little harder. Have them try to come up with the sounds with to form the digraphs themselves, to form the those initial sounds of two consonants together by themselves, and then insert vowel sounds into it so they can come up with some words. You can include vocabulary words. You can also do words with more than 3 letters, and or move on to more complex digraphs, emblems. I just mentioned that. All right, so now very soon I'm gonna record myself as well. Once again, I'm gonna record myself in a separate video that I'll insert into this presentation so that you can see live demonstrations on both activity 1 and activity 2. Thank you so much. All right, class. Hi, friends. All right, this is the activity number 1 live demo. Once again, for activity number 1, I am sorting blends. We're gonna do beginning consonants. The way that I will go about an activity like this one in my classroom, first I will have my own resources, try to go over some of those beginning consonants that we're studying, like pl, cl, and fl. And after a lesson in class, having them repeat them several times and helping me sort some images that have some text in them, like a clap. And also like to differentiate, you can have them clap, but also you have the word right there, and then you can ask them, all right, so clap sounds like cl, so then let's put it right under. And then the next image, this is a flower. Fl. Fl will go where? Flower will go under fl. And then we will place it right there. And then the last image. What is this? This is a plug. What is the initial sound? Pl. We will place it right under pl. And just like that, my friends, we have created for you, and then you develop the lesson now into, first, I like to run my lessons. I learned this from a few colleagues. I do, we do, they do. So, I demonstrate, we do it together, and now it's their turn. So then for them, I print out their own cutouts with what we just went through. I will make sure that I clarify that for this cutout, it's a cloud and not a clap, but I like the clap because, it helps us also make an activity. This is kind of like how they will look like, right? If you cut them out yourself and then you cut them one more time. But I try to be fun with my students, so I actually for them try to when I do this type of activities, I try to use like colors and kind of like pre-set it up, in a format like this one, kind of. And then give them all these little tiles so that they can start. I'm gonna actually move the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. I'll give them all the tiles, and then they will have to like place them properly. Like for example, a clown will go under club, and then they will have to sort them out one by one. It's a number of them. Like plane will go right under plug. And just like that, they'll continue to glue their own chart and maybe later post them in the wall and go over them a few more times during the week and reinforce this type of activities until they can move to the next level. Now for activity number 2, let me clean up really quick. So for activity number 2, I like a lot the push it, say it. So this is kind of like what I prepare. First, I would like do a mini one-on-one lesson. Maybe it's like an MTSS or 1 or 2 students, or as a whole class. You may write this on the board, and then maybe have a sentence to make sense of what you're trying to teach them. Like the cat sat on the mat. And so today we're going to learn about at. And then you have a few other consonants, and then later you're going to have them, we're going to have to push it and say it. And as we push them, we're going to stress on the sounds of each one of these consonants and on this blend. And the same thing for this other one right here. So after we go over a mini lesson, I always like to do a mini lesson first. Then I prepare the same thing for them in mini tiles version. And I hope you can see. I'm gonna move the camera one more time so you can see how it looks like. So I will like basically organize the tiles in their desk, and I'll have them follow my lead. Like for example, here we have an, and here we have t, and we have them repeat. And as I push them, you explain how you're gonna work. You tell them as I push them, you're gonna make the sound. And. Tan. Or I guess this would have been like maybe ant. I don't know. Then you take the other tiles and practice in the same way. Like and fan, and just have them play with the sound. And you can stretch them out, push them inward if you want them to blend the sounds together, and if you want to stress a particular sound or you want to correct them. For example, all right, just make this sound alone. And just like that, you can play with these tiles and try to get the sounds out of them. And then again, you have a sentence that you can kind of like review what you just went through. Dan is a man with a van. All right. Well, that's the demonstration for activity number 2, and I really hope you enjoy this.